In this task, I'll use some GRASS tools to allocate portions of the road network served by each San Francisco police station. GRASS is a mature and powerful FOSS GIS software package. It has a unique data structure that can be initially intimidating. Fortunately, QGIS Desktop has a GRASS plugin that provides a much more intuitive interface to the large suite of GRASS analysis tools. Here I have the Lab 6 Task 2 QGIS project open, which has 3 layers loaded: the San Francisco streets, the fire stations, and the police stations. These layers are GRASS vector maps stored in a GRASS database, which is essentially a folder containing GRASS data. The GRASS database is Lab 6 Data GRASSDB. These datasets have been imported into GRASS from shapefiles. In the QGIS desktop, they'll behave just like any other layer. However, since they're stored as GRASS vectors, you can also use the suite of GRASS tools with them. These GRASS tools include a set for network analysis. So first I'll enable the GRASS plugin. So I'm going to go to the Plugins menu, Manage and Install Plugins. GRASS is a core QGIS plugin, so it should already be installed. I just have to check the box to enable it. And you'll see a toolbar has turned on, which is part of the GRASS plugin, a new toolbar just for GRASS. So the data for this project is already set up in our QGIS document. So I don't have anything to do in that regard in terms of setting up GRASS. However, I do want to introduce the GRASS data structure to you because it is a little bit unique. As I said, GRASS data is stored in a GRASS database, which again is simply a folder. Inside the GRASS database will be another series of folders called locations. And inside each location folder will be additional folders called map sets. The locations represent a spatial extent and a coordinate reference system that you can identify when you actually create that location. Map sets are a way to organize data and are the data tier that actually contains data layers. Furthermore, every location contains a default map set called permanent. Often people will set up additional map sets for different reasons. For example, people may set up map sets for different users on a network. There may be a map set for Tom and one for Mary and one for Alice, etc. Or they may set up map sets for categories of data such as hydrology or transportation, boundaries, etc. So to begin working with that GRASS tools, I'll need to have a GRASS map set open. So I've got this QGIS document with these data layers in it that are GRASS data sets, but we don't actually have a GRASS map set open yet. And one thing that having a GRASS map set, and one important part about having a GRASS map set open is that it determines where your outputs will be saved from GRASS geoprocessing operations. So for this lab, there's an empty map set called My Data that I'll open to complete task 2. So from the GRASS toolbar here, I'll click the Open Map Set button, and it should already default to the Lab 6 Data GRASSDB folder. If it doesn't, you can just click the Browse button to identify this GRASS database folder. The location is going to be Lab 6 San Francisco, and the map set is My Data. And if it isn't set to this, you can always just hit the drop downs. These are all the map sets contained in this location. So I'll just choose the My Data map set and click OK. And when I click OK and open this map set, you'll see 2 changes. Probably the most obvious change is that this red box appears around my data. This represents the region of study, which in this case is equal to the location settings. It's the spatial extent of my study area. The other change is that the remaining buttons on the GRASS toolbar, most of which were inactive, are now active and I can use them. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on this GRASS Tools toolbar. And the GRASS Tools window opens. This is the main interface to all the GRASS geoprocessing tools. And it has 3 tabs. There's the Modules tree tab, and this contains a toolbox of all the different geoprocessing operations organized hierarchically. There's the Modules list, which contains all of the same GRASS tools, but organized alphabetically. And there's a text filter, so I can type in a keyword to try to find the correct tool. And finally, there's the Browser tab, which is a browser, kind of like QGIS browser, but just for GRASS data for the open database that I have, and it'll allow me to look at data that's in my location. The first step in doing a network analysis in GRASS is to build a network data set. So to do that, I'm going to go back to the modules tree, and I'll expand vector, spatial analysis, and network analysis. And you'll see there's a half dozen tools for doing network analysis. The tool I'm going to use is the v.net tool. So I'll click on this, and it'll open up the tool in a new tab, a fourth tab just for this tool. And you'll notice that the tool itself has three tabs. There's the options tab, which is where you set the parameters to run the tool. The output tab is what it will switch to when you run the tool, and it'll give you text output about what's happening. And the manual tab is some help for running this tool. So if there's some things that you don't understand about the tool, every tool has pretty good documentation in GRASS. I'll switch back to the options tab. The name of the input vector map is going to be San Francisco streets. The name of the input point vector is going to be the police stations. And you'll notice that these layers have their layer name at the map set that they're located in. The operation to be performed is going to be connect still unconnected points to vector network by inserting new lines. So I'll check that. We'll leave these as the defaults. The arc layer will be ID1. The node layer will be ID2. For the threshold, I'm going to enter 300. And the name for the output vector map will be SF network. Once this is all completed, I can click Run to run the tool. It switches to the Output tab, and as it runs the tool, you'll see some text output about what's being done. And once it's completed, I can click the View Output button to have the output of this operation added to my map canvas and my table of contents. So you'll see the San Francisco network layer added to the table of contents. In addition to the linear network, this operation produced nodes for each police station point. The view output only added the linear network to QGIS, so I'm going to manually add the network nodes now. On the QGIS toolbar, there's a button for adding GRASS vector data. So I'll click this. It will default to the map set that I currently have open, and I'm going to expand this list underneath the map name San Francisco Network and choose the 2-point data set, which will be the nodes. I'll click OK. And those network nodes are added to my table of contents. So I'm going to open the attribute table for this node layer and see what it contains. It just has one attribute column, and the values are an ID from 1 to 14. So unique ID for each police station. I'll close that. Now that the network data set's constructed, I can identify the road territory that each police station should serve. So in the GRASS tools window, I'm going to switch back to the modules tree, and I'm going to use this v.net allocate network tool. So I'll click on that. It opens up in a fifth tab. And another note about these tabs, you'll see that there's a close button here and a close button here. Well, this close button would close this tab, the tab for this tool. And this tool, I can keep it open if I want to, and I can always switch back to the Options tab to see what I ran. I can always go back and change a parameter, maybe even change the output name and rerun it. So it's very convenient to just rerun tools in this way. I'm only going to run 2 tools, so I will leave this open for now. This second close down here would close the entire GRASS tools window. So back to my v.net.alloc tool. The input arc is going to be the San Francisco network line. The input nodes are going to be the San Francisco network 2 points. And the cats are going to be those IDs from the node layer, just 1 through 14 separated by commas. And then I have to give a name for the output vector map. And I'll call this police station allocation. Now that the tool is set up, I'll click Run to run it. Get a little output from the tool running. Should get successfully finished. And I can click View Output to add it to the table of contents. And you'll see the police station allocation layer added here. Before I close the Grass Tools window, I'm going to switch to the Browser tab. There's no data initially in my data folder, but I'm going to click the refresh button, and now that I've created data, there's a vector folder that has the 2 layers that I've created. If I click on one of these, like the San Francisco network, I'll see some information about the geometry and the spatial extent of the layer, and then I'll get the command line history of what was done. Historically, Grass has been a command line driven tool, and it's only been recently that they've developed this nice front-end graphical user interface in QGIS for running these tools. So this would be the historic command line equivalent of what we just ran. And it's a nice history to be able to refer to if you wonder at some point in the future how you created a data set. You can always refer to this. With that, I'll go ahead and close the Grass Tools window. I can turn off the original network and the original streets and fire stations. So I just have my allocation and the police stations. And I'm going to drag these up above. So let's open up the attribute table for the allocation layer. And you'll see that it just has one category, one column, and it has values of 1 to 14. So it's basically divided up this street network into IDs for each police station. So to see what this looks like visually, I'm going to restyle this layer. I'll double click on it, go to the Style tab, and I'll choose a categorized renderer, and the field that I'm going to use is cat. I'll keep the random colors color ramp and hit classify. And there's this one default category for null values, and we don't have any. I can just delete that. And I'll click OK. And you'll see now the road layer colored by the police station that it should serve. And for the most part, this has done a good job of choosing contrasting colors. There's a couple neighboring ones here that are both different shades of green. You can always expand this and tweak the colors of each one of those so that you get a better representation of the territory for each. The last thing I'm going to do is label the police stations. So I'll double click on the police station layer, switch to the Labels tab, and I'm going to check Label this layer with facility name. These are the attribute columns in the police station layer. So I'm going to use the facility name as my attribute for labeling. I'm going to switch to the text option down here, and I'm going to make the font one size larger. And I'll check the buffer option down here and check the box for draw text buffer. This will put a white halo around the label and make it easier to read against the busy background. So with that, I'll click OK. And now each police station is labeled, and we have a nice map developing here of what part of town each police station should serve. So in this lab, you were exposed to basic network allocation analysis. You were also introduced to the Grass data structure and how to use the QGIS Grass plugin to do spatial analysis.